Hello, Cobus.
Oh no, what's going on here,
Okay.
Darko?
Yes,
Focus.
you are. Focus. You are
Yes.
welcoming the people. Hello.
Hello. Welcome everybody to another episode of DevBeardOps, where Darko and myself talk about DevOps, automation, the cloud, and everything in between and also outside of that. And also remember, it's the beard on the inside that counts. So, Darko, now it's your turn. What are we doing
now,
today?
now it's my turn. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hi, Chad. Hi, Flexion. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. And today's topic is, I think, this thing here. GitOps. Well, actually, it's a continuation of GitOps. Last week, Cobus and I spoke about GitOps and how does it apply to you, to your company, to whatever you're doing. So I think last week, if I recall, we spoke about infrastructure automation and actually what is GitOps in the terms of infrastructure automation and provisioning stuff you want to run stuff on. And today we're going to be talking something else. We're going to be still keeping the topic of GitOps, but we're actually going to be moving to, we're going to be focusing on configuration. That is managing your configuration through code. Not only infrastructure is code, but only configuration is code. Not only, but also configuration is code as well. So that's the whole point, right? Today we're going to be chatting about your favorite configuration tools like Chefs, Ansibles, Puppets, app configs, whatever it is you do to configure the things that are running on your application, on your servers, on your Lambda functions, or wherever you're running stuff on.
Yes. So let's start off by first splitting config, because you and I had a bit of a chat before we started the stream now in terms of when you think of configuration, what do we mean about that? And basically there's your actual application configuration, like values that you have in a config file, or you read from the database, or you read from somewhere to tell the app how to configure itself. And then the other set is the configuration on your actual infrastructure. So let's say you're running some kind of virtual machine or a physical machine, you need to configure it, install some stuff, versions of certain packages, etc. So those are the two main points we're going to be talking about today. Just so when you say config, it's one of those two, and you'll figure out from the context which one we are talking about.
Exactly.
We forgot our usual check. Is the audio okay? Because we do fiddle with our audio between all the streams. Are we about the same?
So here's the thing. Last week I've noticed my audio was very loud, in a sense that my audio was clipping when I was being so loud. I've turned down the volume. I know.
Would you say you're a boomer?
I was a boomer. Yeah. My voice was booming, so I actually reduced the amount of gain on my microphone now. So, but do tell me if you hear me clipping here or booming.
Yes.
I'll shut up now, boomer.
Okay. So, where do we want to start? Do we want to do application configuration first or server configuration first? Which one comes first, Darko?
I think for the benefit of everybody here who joined us or who's joining us for the first time, let's talk about this word here, right? Not Darko, but the one beneath GitOps. So, what is GitOps? Why are we talking about that? Why is it important? And I've seen a couple of comments even last week and today as well on LinkedIn. Somebody said what is the difference between GitOps and DevOps? Cobus, what is the difference between GitOps and DevOps?
I'd say with DevOps, you can buy it in units. So you can buy 5 units normally is what I recommend. And with GitOps, you apply it in number of commits or PRs. That's obviously the main difference. Yeah, no. So basically the DevOps is a very long discussion. Go read the Phoenix project and go look at DevOpsdays.org for a local, community-based conference close to you.
Right.
But DevOps is effectively a mindset / a set of practices around doing things. It's not tools. It's not, consulting hours, although you can pay consulting hours for it.
Of course.
But it's basically just a way to bring dev and ops closer together. Where GitOps is saying, cool, let's look at the operational side of whatever you're doing and see if we can use Git to drive all of that and drive all the changes. So every change you want to make goes into some kind of source code repository. It doesn't have to be Git. Git just happens to be very popular and widely used at the moment. But it goes in there, and then from there it rolls out like your code would normally through some kind of automated pipeline, hopefully with some kind of testing in between stages. So if you've got multiple environments like dev, testing, staging, production, or UAT, or whatever you call it, pre-production, And then ultimately it gets rolled out that way. So it's all through your version control system.
Right, exactly. So as one of the definition goes, the single source of truth inside of your infrastructure workload, whatever you're running, is a Git repository or multiple Git repositories. But that is where the truth is. It's not in a little piece of paper you wrote down that you have to click here or launch that and create that. It's all in a Git repository. And when you make a change to a workload, that is also tracked or auditable, traceable through the wonders of Git commits. So that's the whole point of GitOps. And basically anything you do in your system should be through a Git push. And that's it, right? Imagine, and I love that. So I'm a fan of old technology, right? I have things that run behind me. I have old computers. I have things that should never be connected to the internet ever again. But what makes me happy is that I can use the same old technology that I have to maintain a large infrastructure, right? Just because I can use Git to do all of those things, or at least SSH into something that can do Git or other things. So I think that's a first of all, it's cool, but also it is very useful for you as an operations people. Any ops people here, right? Any people who are in IT operations here who have built infrastructure a long time ago and are still doing that, let us know. Let us know, how do you provision infrastructure? How do you make changes to it? We like to hear that as well. So, but I would say also, like, there is, I wouldn't never compare GitOps and DevOps, right? They have a similar name, but it's not things that are different or the same. I think GitOps is just a practice within the entire DevOps culture or the way of approaching things, right? So yeah.
Yeah, like Dan MBA is saying here, is like in eliminating a person as your single ops point of failure. And this is something that's important to understand in any business. Is like, it's called the bus factor. It's a little bit morbid in the sense that it asks how many people in your company do you need to be have to be hit by a bus before your company becomes non-operational. So nobody else knows how to fix things. And you want that number obviously as high as possible, because guess what? If somebody decides to leave, you might be in a bad state. So what this allows you to do is, because everything is automated and done through a central system, it means that while there is obviously some historical knowledge of how things were set up in the history of things and all that in someone's head that could potentially go when they do leave the company, it does mean that when they leave, you can still continue using the system and actually making changes. Whereas if it's someone who only knows the magic hand wavy of SSH to this jump box, and then from that jump box port forward to that other one and do all of those fun things to get to the actual production server, if they leave and it's not documented, you can't make changes. And that is not a nice place to be in, last time I checked, because things change. So
exactly. I'll give you a personal example. So I used to work for a company, and I was what they used to call a system administrator, right? And I was doing configuration on some systems, some backend systems we were running, and I did my part. I documented it in my little notebook, right? And I went on a 1 week vacation. I came back. It was completely broken, right? The thing was just not working. I got emailed, I got called during my vacation saying, "Hey, Darko, this thing broke. It just doesn't work anymore. Something's wrong. What did you do?" I'm like, I'm on vacation. I didn't do anything. I didn't even have a corporate laptop back then. And I came back to work a week later, and turns out somebody has done something. And I couldn't know who did it. I didn't know what was done. I literally could not figure out what was done. Something was changed on that system that I couldn't track. I don't know what change has been made. So what I ended up doing, I ended up scrapping the entire thing, running it all over, and just basically locking it up. Right? Nobody can touch this but me. Which solved the problem of people not breaking it. However, then the bus factor comes in, right? If I go on vacation, if I go do anything else, well, that system stays locked. That system stays where it is. So when you have practices like GitOps, basically making changes, provisioning things, configuring things through the means of code, and all of that code is not sitting on Darko's laptop while he's on vacation, but it's sitting in a Git repository, and you have automated processes that when you hit Git push, and it's merged into this branch that you need to merge it into, it all automatically gets pushed, and the changes are done regardless of who does it. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things.
It also gives you the added benefit of then not having to give admin rights to production to all of your employees. Because one of the things, like especially in like regulatory environments, is one of the requirements is like the developer is not allowed to be able to touch any of the production systems. I used to work at a place where we used to have to go pair up with ops people because literally walk across the building, go sit next to their desk. And there were cameras because we were not allowed to physically touch the keyboard. If we touched the keyboard, there would be serious issues.
Wow.
So you sat there with your hands like this, say, do there, type this, please, type that, please, and the things. So it's important.
Jumping back to the questions we have here and about how are you provisioning things, we have CCTOS 1655 saying here they use CloudFormation Terraform, right? And they're using CLI and SAM. These are the things that you should be doing if you're deploying stuff to AWS. Right? Is it going to be CloudFormation? Is it going to be CDK? Is it going to be Terraform? Is it going to be Pulumi? Is it going to be whatever? It doesn't matter, right? As long as you're able to commit it to a Git repository and it's all traceable and even automated to an extent to provision things for you, right?
The one thing I would say here is if you want to go the GitHub route, I did see you mention the previous comment mentioning AWS CLI. Look at tools in terms of that handle the whole rerunning of the command for you. So, for example, if you think like the difference between, let's say, using the CLI versus Terraform or CDK is in Terraform CDK, you say, listen, create me an EC2 instance. Here are the configurations, and you run it. It creates it if it's the first time. The second time you run it, it makes sure that the values are what you want it to be and makes any changes to bring it back to whatever the configuration state was. Whereas with the CLI, it's always a create command, and if you try and run it again, guess what? Second instance. So it's kind of like I would try and limit the AWS CLI usage in this specific use case for doing things with GitOps. I know sometimes you can't get around it, like certain things can only be done by a CLI or some other command.
I've actually worked with a company a while ago, and for a specific workload, they had a very specific, dare say it, weird way of doing GitOps. So the only thing they would commit to a Git repository was runbooks, like documentation, not code, documentation. They would upload basically how to do something and how something should look like. And also besides that, they would upload auditing code. So what happens here, because they didn't trust themselves to write code that mutates the system, they would write a runbook that basically explains an ops engineer what they need to do that, and they would just enforce it by running just your inspects or whatnot, which, it's GitOps to an extent. It kind of applies all the practices, but it's not automated. It's just, there's too much room for error there. So you can do that if you don't trust yourself scripting stuff or using any of these things, but be very careful when you're doing that, because you will miss things, especially if you have to do it at scale. So
yeah. I mean, once again, I worked at another place that had that, except there were so many different products and plugins for the system. Everyone had a runbook, and I literally had to do a piece of work once where the required change was in the report. The date format was day, month, year, and they wanted to go to month, day, year. So it's literally just change formatting from one to another format. It took me 2 weeks to complete the task because it took me 5 full days to work through all of the runbooks to set up the VM environment with all the specific configurations and plugins and everything as per that specific client's needs. Then it took me another 3 days to find the right version of the reporting tool for their set of reports to get that up and running. The actual change took 5 minutes. Then after the change, I had to fill in the post-release runbook checklist of did I test it on X, Y, Z, going through all of those things and release it. So literally 2 weeks for a 5-minute job.
Of course.
Because there wasn't automation. Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? And, if you have a proper GitOps thing set up in your environment, none of those things should matter because all of those things should be automated. And of course, I know, it takes time to configure this. It takes time to set it up. It's not like let's buy GitOps and install it. The same with DevOps. It takes you time to build it up, configure it, and all of those things. Just take it one step at a time. And ultimately, you wanna do these things by you wanna remove your technical debt, right? And I think that is very important in this case.
You just gave me a great idea. I think from now on, when I start selling my DevOps packages, when you go for the 50 plus enterprise deal, I'm going to throw in a couple of GitOps packages as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I get a handful of the GitOps as well? Oh, hey, Becky. Hey, welcome back. I want to answer this question from Jitish. Jitesh asks, what about AWS could design a built-in repository instead of using GitHub? There is a code repository in AWS. It's called AWS Code Commit. It is your Git solution on top of AWS. So if you're looking to use AWS's built-in Git repository, check out AWS Code Commit. I only am sad because Code Commit doesn't have this public-facing thing. Hence, a lot of us are using GitHub because GitHub is great. Don't get us wrong, GitHub is amazing, and it's just very practical. So, but if you want to have it in AWS, you can.
I mean, it comes back to that whole requirements thing. Is like a lot of the customers told us, listen, they need Git repositories managed somewhere on infrastructure that they want to pay for, but it can't be a public service. So, or public accessible or something because you can lock it down, etc. So
exactly. All right. Hey, Impulso, welcome back. We haven't seen you in a while. I think you were you last week? I think he was.
No.
I think he was. I'm not sure. I see this gentleman all over. So welcome back to the stream. Okay, but today's topic is just GitOps, right? But also I want to talk about configuration management because last week we talked about how you should provision your infrastructure through code, right? Through your CloudFormations, Terraform, CDKs, whatever's right, and have it all in Git and have it all in pipeline. Test the code as well. Verify will it launch what you want it to launch. But let's talk about what happens next. How do you configure your infrastructure? How do you configure your applications? Let me know, chat. What kind of configuration management are you using? How are you making feature flags in your application? How are you adding users to your Linux servers? How are you changing groups? How are you making some specific services, etc., etc.? Tell us how about that. While they get into that, Kobus, can you tell us what configuration management is?
Yes, it's basically the act of getting your server, be it a physical server or a virtual machine of some kind, into the desired state that you want. So you have all the required packages installed, runtimes installed, patches, whatever it is that you need to do. And then on top of that, once you have those installed, you also have them configured correctly for whatever it is that you're trying to do with the server. And that could be like adding, let's say, third-party API keys if you're using something to monitor your services, or it might be, let's say, database connection strings or whatever it is. Anything basically to make this box that you just got up and running do what it's supposed to do when you give it the code. Effectively, to put it in hand-wavy abstracts.
So basically, it comes from a more traditional background, right? So when we used to configure servers and things that are your EC2 instances, whatever you have, right? When you had to configure things running on them. Now, we live in a world of containers and serverless, but not everything is containers and not everything is serverless. So you want to be able to run some sort of a code, something to configure specific things on a server. You don't want to have to SSH into each box and set up a specific user and configure a service and set up all of those things. Ask me about it. You want that to be done automatically. And when I joined AWS, one of the simple things to do is just set up a thing called a user data script, which is basically either a PowerShell or a Bash script that executes every time. Well, only the first time your instance runs. So, let's say you have a Linux instance, you can set up a Bash script that will install specific packages to it, and that's it, right? That's okay, but that's not configuration management in the real sense, because it's very difficult to stream not stream. Well, I read a stream here. It's very difficult to change things as you go along. So in this case, I would say that configuration management requires some sort of a active way of managing that configuration. If you want to change a specific package on a system, you want to be able to push that change to your environment, right?
And also, that I think touching on, like, when you say push a package change to the environment, is like, okay, which environment? Are we talking dev? We're doing production? Are we talking all of them?
Yep. Yep. Here's a great question. Here's a great question from Surly Dev. And I think we can answer this one. I get it that you should have your configuration as code. Commit it in Git. It allows you to retreat your service at cattle and all those things, right? Fun. But how can you code things such installing drivers, Oracle ODAC, a driver, for example, or entries in Windows hosts file, etc.? Well, glad you asked. There are tools, there are services, there's things out there that can actually help you do that. Cobus, can you give us a few?
Yes. So, by the sounds of this, let's tackle Windows first, because that tends to be slightly harder than Linux. Linux in general, because it's got SSH, and you tend to be able to do a lot of the config files are text files. It's to a certain extent simpler in terms of the mindset. But Windows has this lovely thing called the registry. It's got, like, for example, the host files and how to access those. They released, and I think this was in with Server 2012. It came out, DSC desired state
configuration.
State configuration, yeah, DSC. So it's basically this API interface that allows you to interact with Windows to configure it. And what happened very quickly after that, or even with the launch, I can't remember, was that the configuration management tools, like, let's say, Chef, Ansible, Puppet, Salt, those things, they built their own modules around that specific new capability of Windows, and allowed you to use the directives and the basic building blocks inside it. So you could, in Chef, for example, specify a host file content is this, and then when Chef ran on the Windows instance, it knew, okay, cool, this thing's got DSC. Let me use DSC to actually set that file for you. So you can definitely do things like that, and also, like, for example, installing drivers. If there's not a specific public package available for it, then what you can do is you can actually wrap it, your own little basically mechanism to do specific installs of files or run specific commands for you as well. And you can write it in a way that it's rerunnable by whatever tool you want to use. So with Ansible, you write your own, I think it was roles and playbooks. Chef, it's called recipes inside cookbooks. I can't remember what the Salt and Puppet ones is. Puppet, I think, is manifest, but in any case, you can wrap it and then you can do it.
Modules. Puppet, I don't know. I with Puppet, I confuse between modules and manifests. I think modules are sitting in manifests or vice versa. I don't know. But yes, Surly Dev. You have these tools. Basically, if you go on Ansible and say, I want these packages from Chocolatey to be installed, or I want this specific. Thank you.
Sorry, but
Cobus decided to give you his virtual coughing.
Sorry, yeah.
So basically, Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Salt Stack, even DSC natively, you can make it so that, like, hey, install this MSI package. And what it will do, it will not just install this package, but it will know it has installed this package. So every time you try to run that thing again, and you should run it every half an hour or every hour or every 6 hours, whatever, automatically it will check if that thing is installed. And then if you make a change to that configuration, it's going to change the version or the configuration, whatever you want, right? So the only problem you may run into, and again, I come from this background where I had specific tools in Windows that needed to be clicked, right? There's no way to interact with them besides clicking. So sometimes it is very, very difficult to do those things. In 99.9% of the cases, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. No problem whatsoever. With Puppets, with Chef, with Ansible, with SaltStack, with CF Engine. I think CF Engine is specifically for Linux, but all of those things. And here's a comment from Carl Doe, yeah. OpsWorks. OpsWorks is one of the services on AWS that basically helps you run a Chef or Puppet server. So if you have a bunch of Windows, a bunch of Linux servers that you need to manage with either Chef or Puppet, check out OpsWorks. OpsWorks, there's actually 3 flavors of OpsWorks. There's the classic OpsWorks, which is relatively old, and there's OpsWorks for Chef Automate, which provisions the Chef Automate server for you, and there's OpsWorks for Puppet Enterprise, basically launches a managed Puppet Enterprise for you. So, yeah.
We just pull this up quickly just to show you. Like with Chef specifically, you can see this is the syntax for DSC to do things like, for example, ensure that file is present or resources and things like that. So it literally is like however you would configure it. So very easy to actually do it.
Exactly. So, and Chef, since I think 5 or 6 years ago, had a lot of added things, especially for Windows. Before you had to be really hacky with Chef and Windows. Right now, they built like chocolatey packages in. They built specific registry key changes. So a lot of those things which came native on Linux and Chef are now quite available in Chef and Windows. So if you're doing those things on Windows or Linux, check those things out. And what's wonderful about all of those things, it's all code, right? It's not a thing you click through. It's not a thing somebody has to go and set up. It's a little agent that runs on your system, and basically what it does, it does what you tell it to, right? You set this desired state. You say in a Chef cookbook, you say, I want these packages installed. Or I want these users to be present in the system. I want this registry key to be set up in this way. And then you go ahead and you bootstrap 10,000 Windows servers to it. Windows goes in, picks that information up, and applies it, right? For all the traditional Windows people out there, or people who have an Active Directory, you can use group policy objects for those similar things as well. Group policy objects are also a way of configuration management. However, group policy objects are not code. They're clickable. I know there's a way you can have them as code as well, but it's not in the same way. You cannot keep it in a Git repository easy enough. So, Castor 6 has. Ansible has large amount of Windows objects. Exactly. All of these tools are actually have great support for Windows in the last 10 years at least. Initially, it was a pain in the neck to get Windows stuff on it as well. So,
well, pain in the neck or job security.
Fair point. Yeah. Sorry, that Darko. What is that tattoo on your left arm? This one? Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah. No, wait till you see the other one.
Oh, I have another one.
Show us the right one.
There we go. The right one. This is the right hand. Yes.
Yes.
I actually
is that kind of person.
maybe Microsoft will offer me a job. Hi, Microsoft. Or maybe, well, I don't know who.
Wait,
maybe Linus.
hold on.
Maybe Linus reaches out to me. Hi, Linus. But Ruther local host is not something he does. But yeah, what is Winget? What is Winget?
Winget is I've got a story around this. This is basically how you can download. No, wait, not Winget. I'm thinking of something else. Basically, the Windows version of wget. But yeah. So here's a fun little story for you. This was Windows Server, I want to say 2012 days, because there was PowerShell. And you all know, back in the day, the old version of Windows, when you started it up, it only had one browser installed, which was Internet Explorer. And the very first time you needed to, or you open it up, it took... Well, no. It's even better than that, Darko. You'll love this. What would happen, it often offers you that window saying, how do you want to configure default settings and all those things. You remember those clicky? You had to do it the first time you ran it. You had to do it, yeah. So here's a fun fact. It's brand new Windows Server VM up and running. Okay. I'm using PowerShell, and I run basically the equivalent of a wget command there. And it keeps failing for some obscure reason. And it took me a while, and after a while I figured out that the reason it's failing is that they, in the background, somehow use Internet Explorer to do this, but it couldn't download the file because it's not configured. You had to open Windows Explorer at least once, click through all the things, and then say, okay, cool, now you can go. Before I could get that. So it was PowerShell used this thing called invoke web request. So so it used this, right? And invoke web request. Why did you take my screen off? Sorry. There we go.
That's right. It basically uses invoke web request, and I think invoke web request, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but invoke web request uses Internet Explorer as its backend system. So if you would do like an invoke web request, it will basically use an IE whatever it is. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think in the latest version of PowerShell, this is no longer the case. They may be using Edge, but I'm not sure. But before, yes. I remember those things, and I had a similar situation where I would have to install a package or get a package with invoke request or wget basically. and yeah, it was just broken. So yeah.
So, two fun points on this as well that I learned over the years with doing this kind of thing. So, when you've got these configuration management tools up and running on your services, you're happy. What happens is that the service spins up, the configuration manager takes over, and it runs and installs a whole bunch of packages and does things. That led to two specific interesting problems, which you kind of want to avoid nowadays by pre-baking your images, which we'll cover just off this, which is, let's say I spin up a server today, and my thing's just set to say install Apache.
Right.
It goes and says whatever's available in the local repo, and it does that. What happens then is if I run it tomorrow, on this server, it says, well, Apache's installed, I don't have to worry, unless I've got it configured to automatically upgrade. If I spin up a new server tomorrow, that might have a new version of Apache. Now I have two servers next to each other with the same configuration management, except they're not the same anymore. And that's where you start running into issues. The second challenge that I had is that, and this probably will, some of you might have run into this, is when they move the old Java install files behind a login wall. So I can remember why Oracle did it, and I don't even know if it's like this anymore. But basically, what I had Chef set up to, as soon as the server booted up, it would grab a specific pinned version of the JDK or JRE, install it on the machine, and then there we go. And yes, I should probably have pre-baked it because that's 100 meg download every single time. But don't judge me, I was young. And then suddenly one day, and we had this up on a dashboard in the Chef runs and things. All of a sudden, there was this timestamp line, and after that, everything was red. Every single Chef run failed because it could not pull the Java JRE anymore. So when you do these kind of things, think about upstream dependencies. Always think about those because they will hit you.
Yeah.
It's
do not. I would say do not introduce external upstream dependencies to critical systems if you can. So use local repositories for specific packages. Use a file share for Java packages or something like that, because there was this unfortunate situation a few years back where one of the creators of a specific Ruby gem just closed it off, just deleted the repo for everybody. And then
it was actually Seth Vargo,
Yeah, it was basically caused the crash of Chef runs everywhere because it relied on that thing. So it's and this is a very important point from Kessler 6. Version pin stuff.
Yes,
so
please.
Version pin. So in configuration management, when you want to install a specific package, let's say you want to install a specific package of Java, right, or Java JDK, whatnot. Instead of just downloading whichever is the latest or using the latest tag or whatnot, make sure to use a specific version. Number one, because this will avoid having a situation where you have two different versions of the package running on different servers, right? Because you may have version 1.0 on one server, and then in the between time before the configuration management run on this server again, the second server may have 1.7 or whatnot, right? Whatever. So those things can be problematic at times. So version pinning is also very important. When writing Chef, Puppet, Ansible, whatever code you do, make sure to use specific versions of software in production.
Yes. And that then brings us to the other second part, is that when you do make your rollouts or changes like this, you need to be able to do them in a staggered sense, that I can make a package upgrade to non-production environment before I did in production. Because once again, ran into that a few times where you would make a change, roll it out to an entire org. Because remember with Chef, you've got the different concepts of environments, but you can say, listen, update the cookbook, and as soon as it's updated, the next run time on any of those servers connected to it will grab it and run it. And what happened is that it broke production because there was a bug in it that I hadn't caught, and then basically I took down everything, which is a big lesson. Just remember, when you've automated everything, what is that? DevOps Moar had something like, I'll go find about it. Something like with great automation comes great screw ups or something like that.
So when you automate at scale, you can screw up at scale. That's one of the things you need to know, right? So when you do things manually and you break a system, you broke a system. You broke a box, you broke a server, something most of the time. But when you automate things, breaking things at scale is fun, right? So okay. I think this is a great we're going to come back to this, but I think this is a great point to welcome everybody new coming here. Hi, hello Twitch, hello LinkedIn, hello YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Welcome to DevBeardOps, a show where two bald bearded guys talk about DevOps, automation, cloud, and anything in between and beyond that. Today's topic is a continuation of our last week's discussion on GitOps, and today we talk specifically about what does GitOps mean with configuration management, your chefs, your puppets, your Ansibles, all of these things here. So we also want to hear what you're doing. We have a lovely bit of chat here on Twitch. So hello, TypeScript Tea Time. Hello, welcome once again. And I love to hear all of your comments and discussions on this one as well. So we talked about screwing up at scale.
Yes.
One of the things that you have the benefit of code, right, Kobus, is when you use code, you can do things really fast. You can do things in a very repeatable manner. But with good code comes good responsibility. I don't know, it's a horrible thing. So you need to, if you're using code, make sure you're using code in the right way. That means apply software development practices to infrastructure development, to configuration management development. Any of these things need to be treated in the same way as you do with your application code. What does that mean, Kobus?
That means git push-f to main and then straight to production, right?
No. Git push, download the zip, and then overwrite everything in production.
So, It basically means it's one of those things like, I mean, Darko and I've had many, like, even like conference talks and things on this where we discuss it. It's like, literally, when we say infrastructure as code, configuration as code, anything as code, we meet the as code part is the important part where it's like, you commit that code, you use a branching strategy, or if you directly to mainline, different ways of doing it. But that code goes through some kind of testing pipeline. There's something happening to the code other than, compiling it and then deploying it. That happens, that makes sure it does this code, linting it, checking it for bugs through some kind of testing, like either provisioning some infrastructure and running tests against it, or unit tests or integration tests or smoke tests or whatever you want. There's something that happens there, or at the very least, hopefully some person eyeballing it, because you know what they say is like every one of us every company has got a set of testers for their software. Some companies are just lucky that it isn't the users. And you kind of want to not make your users your testers because they catch things,
and it's very expensive. So I've actually created this little. I don't have it here. Wait, do I have it? Wait, I need to show this. I'm very much proud of this thing. I do have it here. Boom. So give me a second. I need to show this little thing. It's not great, but it's okay.
Let's look.
This is how much your code costs you in different stages, right?
Yeah.
A bad code on the source stage costs nothing, almost nothing, right? When you move up, it's more and more expensive the more you test it. And this also applies not just to application code, but also to any kind of code you're running, right? So this is the thing that can kind of save you. If Kobus says you don't want your customers to test your code, they can, but it's a very expensive way of testing your code, right? So try to catch it early on.
Darko, I just have to comment on your lack of proper alignment there for the little things above it. It's the second two are a little bit lower, and then they go over the line. We'll have to work on that. This is...
I see. Oh, you mean this bad code? Oh my God!
I'm terrible at that. I'm very good at seeing when things aren't aligned properly and straight. So come now, Darko. There we go. That's a little bit, but it's still too low. It's too low. You can see that it's too low. Cool.
Is it too low?
Yeah, it's lower than the other ones.
Really? I'm blind. I don't know.
It looks better now.
It looks better now. Okay, I apologize.
That's better. Thank you, Darko. See, this was the manual step you need in your slides as code automation. Okay.
Yeah.
But we have got some questions and comments over here. Yeah. Let's quickly grab some of them here. This is a fun one. We'll have opinion notes about this one. So Jabasoft is saying, slight curveball, but does anyone have a consistent infra test framework, i.e. smoke test as part of the CI/CD pipeline for varied stacks, services, using the most suitable tools, scripting but reporting in a common way, asking for a friend. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know of any like single framework to kind of do them all, especially when it comes to infrastructure code. It really depends on what you're writing your infrastructure with, right? So if you're doing things in CDK supports unit testing with Jest, right? That's a great way to do it. If you're using CDK and CloudFormation, you can use things like CFN Guard, which will basically run some preliminary checks against your template before it launches to verify, is this what you want? Like, for example, I have a piece of CFN Guard code that verifies, is my bucket encrypted, right? Or any bucket in this stack, it needs to be encrypted. And if it's not, it fails it. What happens, Cobus, once we go beyond that? What tools can we use when we go beyond those things?
So once you've tested the actual code, so this means the code is being tested without executing it. But as we all know, like that code, it doesn't always behave the way we think it's going to. So you actually have to also test once it's actually been executed. So that kind of brings in two types of testing. The one is, let's say you're provisioning infrastructure. You can spin it up, and then you can actually use something like inspec to run a test suite against, is there an EC2 instance with this name, with this attribute, with the security group, etc., and actually handle that. Or what you can do is, I know with Chef, because they went with the whole cooking type analogies, you can use Test Kitchen, and Test Kitchen was actually very cool because you could configure it to use Docker as a driver for the test suite. So you can say, listen, I've got a new cookbook, let's test it locally with Docker and actually do it. But what you could also do, which was super useful, was you could say, listen, change that, swap that out for the AWS driver, and it would actually, as part of the test, spin up an EC2 instance, provision it, run inspect on the machine, check that it did what it was supposed to, and then tear it down again. So what we did is we had a combination of both, saying Docker one for locally, just to do quick tests before you push, and you don't have to wait for the whole suite to run. And then in the pipeline actually did everything else.
Exactly. So there are, like, inspec is one great tool, and I think I've done a talk on it. So I've done a talk on inspec, how you can test CDK with inspec, right? So 1 second, I have it here, CDK Day 2021. I delivered this thing on CDK Day. Let me share. It was a fun experience for me. Yes. Here's the link to the video I've done, and basically that's me talking about how you do how you test CDK with inspec. So once you've created things, it actually verifies, are the things you created the ones you wanted. So that's a neat way to doing it, right? As well. Okay.
There was one comment over here that I wanted to get at, but now someone spammed us with a bunch of YouTube links. Where's my jar? I need my jar again. Myself promo jar.
So I have more. Cobus, I'll give you more money. I have 2 more things to promote today. So
okay.
But it all benefits you, our audience, and maybe something. Maybe me a bit, but mostly you. So there's a great comment here from where is it?
I'm also
from Kessar6. Infrastructure is more than you think. So Kessar says, I'd like to add, I'd like to add, infrastructure is more than you think. For example, Grafana dashboards are infrastructure. They're defined in JSON, easy to people. Yes, this is the infrastructure. So one of the key parts of your infrastructure is, at least in the modern time, your monitoring dashboards. And how do you do monitoring? You need to be able to plug in things to it, right? So a Grafana dashboard, even Prometheus configuration, all of those things are part of infrastructure, because one of the things you need to have in your infrastructure is a way to look at it, observe it. So this is super important. And I'm not sure if I have that piece of code somewhere, but for example, when I build like a ECS cluster on CDK, I create a construct that basically serves as my CloudWatch dashboard. And anytime I create a new bit of thing, I just plug it into that dashboard. And that's it, right? So that is infrastructure for sure. And thank you very much for sharing that, Kessor. That is very much correct.
I must say, this was one of the things that really got me hooked on Terraform back in the day. I'm still a Terraform lover, just in case anybody's doubting that. I use it, I wouldn't say daily anymore, but everything that I personally maintain, I use Terraform for. Oh, yeah. This guy knows what he's talking about. I fully agree with him. Darko might argue on some points, but the thing with Terraform is when they started bringing out, because they've got the provider, AWS is a provider. They've got hundreds of providers, and they brought out things like, at that point I was working a lot with Datadog, and they had a provider for Datadog. So all of a sudden, all the dashboards and alerts and those kind of things just went into the Terraform configuration. It's like, this is magic, because then you take that, wrap it in a module for a new service, and the base thing's already there. Now, granted, like, we're not going to go into the discussion on should you monitor CPU, memory, and disk I/O. But for example, you can bundle that into the module and completely abstract it away from the developers. And it's just like, when you spin up a new service, boom, it's there, magic.
Okay, so this is a perfect opportunity for me to shill something. Because Cobus mentioned abstracting things for developers, right? All of those things. Next Monday, August the 23rd, I'm actually delivering a webinar on AWS called, it has a horrible name, but it's called Enabling High Velocity, Secure, and Compliant Development Teams. I know, I didn't think of the title. It wasn't me, but I am delivering the content and I'm creating the content. And that entire thing is going to be sort of about GitOps. So if you want to go and register, check it out in that horrible link. That, oh my God. I wish there was
Darko.
This Jesus.
At least strip out the tracking there. I can see where it comes from.
I'm sorry.
You copied it straight out of the mail. Come now.
No, I copied it from the browser. So yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So that link, if you go there, you will find the webinar I'm doing. And if you want to check me talk about GitOps in a more official, or actually without him, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Without me, with better logos and without the flower shirt, because I'm fairly certain you may not wear that flower shirt on official AWS streams.
What? Do you really think I will not be wearing...
I'm more official today. Look.
Do you really think I don't wear this? I have a webinar tomorrow. If you want to check out my webinar tomorrow, I may or may not be wearing this shirt. So, Dan MBA. I fully agree with you, Dan. I don't know if they could cram more of it, but yeah.
They can. You need synergy, paradigm shift, and ubiquitous language. Those are the three bingo buzzwords.
Wait, I'm actually gonna shorten it. Wait, I think TypeScript Tea Time says it good. Give me a sec. I'm gonna go to my Bitly. And then I can track you. What you're clicking on.
Not that, Darko. No.
Bitly create. All right. Copy.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things, like our internal things, like we track, and I'm actually dealing with it now because we want to see how people move between the different things to see what the flows and what people are interested in. Now, in my case, I'll tell you what it is at a later stage once it's launched, but it's very important to see the flow through the whole multiple locations to see like, oh, okay, cool. So that's the kind of thing people tend to want to do. So sorry about that, but it's just a way for us to see what works and what won't.
That's the webinar. You'll find it there. It's August 23rd. Just search for my name. You should be able to follow it. I gave you a Bitly link, but it may not take you to the right place because who cares about deep linking things? Apparently, I'm not a fan of this. But yes, if you want to check it out, I'm actually I'm preparing content for it, so that's pretty good. So make sure to check it out as well. And if you want to see if I'm gonna do a webinar in this shirt, there's a webinar happening tomorrow on light sail object storage. So what?
Did you design this page? What's going on top left between AWS Online Tech Talks and On Demand?
What's happening? This? What? What am I? What here?
It's alignment.
Oh, I don't know. It's
Told you.
I'm sorry, Cobus. Oh wow, I can see it now. Hello, pages.aws.cloud.com. You may have a problem here. So if you want to check this one out, it's about Lightsail and storage on Lightsail. I also did it. I have a lot of props on it. I show floppy disks and all those things. So if you want to check it out, and I may or may not be wearing this shirt.
I actually put all my props away.
Yeah, there you go. So okay. Oh my! Wow, it's already this time. Wow,
yeah,
this has gone really fast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
By the way, thank you, chat. You've been very active today. We like that you were already here. I want to also show somebody else here right now. So Kessler has provided a lot of great content today, a lot of great comments, and he also wants to his presentation on test drive infrastructure code. I have not watched it. I'm going to watch it out after the stream. But if you want to check out some test driving infrastructure code, check it out there. So Kessler has apparently done a presentation. And thank you very much for sharing. If you have ever done a presentation or a video or something like that, feel free to share it with us, right? We would like to check it out, comment on it, and all those things. Maybe we can make a Cobus and Darko Reacts video one day on specific things. It's a bit old, 2015. That doesn't matter. I think it's pretty good, right? So it's still good. Okay.
Yeah.
Coolio.
We were going to do application config, but I do believe that's going to have to wait.
so let's explain this a bit. So there's another bit of configuration management, right? Your traditional configuration management, installing applications, packages on your servers. But there's another side of that, application configuration, which means that, especially for your containers, for your serverless stuff, how do you configure applications? Where do you keep the application configuration files, feature flags? All of those things are part of configuration management.
And how do you version them?
How do you version them? So we're going to talk about that not tomorrow, next week? No, the other week.
No. The week after next.
The week after.
Next week.
We have a guest. Next week we have a guest. So the week after next week, we're going to come back to GitOps and going to talk about application configuration management. So your app configs, your however you do configuration management on applications as well, right? So that's pretty cool. We're gonna share the information who's gonna be joining us next week. Can we do that? Yeah. Okay. Is it confirmed?
It's 99% locked in, so I think we can say it. It's like we're getting one of the developer advocates from HashiCorp, specifically Terraform, to come talk to us about infrastructure as code. And basically, I'm going to geek out about Terraform the whole day long. Darko's going to go like, that's interesting, but CDK is still better.
No. I love Terraform. I'm not an expert in Terraform. I think Terraform is an amazing piece of software. I love I've used CloudFormation initially before YAML was a thing in CloudFormation. So writing JSON was not a thing I want. But so then I kind of use Terraform a bit. But I do think Terraform is a great piece of software or a framework that you definitely should check out. And it's going to be very interesting to have them here on the show and talk about those things, right?
I want to throw in one last little bit about our discussion today, just before, because we've got about 6 minutes before we need to finish off.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking about configuring servers using like Chef Ansible, those things as they come up, and we discussed the problem around pinning versions to make sure you've got the exact same on system 1 as system 2 if they were spun up at different times. But there's another way you can actually approach that problem, which is pre-provisioning the server. So in other words, what you do is you've got some kind of automated build job that goes and spins up the server, installs everything on it that it needs to install. And then once it's done, it shuts it down and snapshots it. And then instead of saying, Chef, go install everything when the server comes up running, it just says, Chef, apply whatever the latest configuration, if there was any changes since you created that image. And that tends to be like API keys and things that you do, because you don't want to necessarily bake that into the base image. And that actually also gets you a lot of like mileage, because you've got an additional security layer. Because if something changed, like let's say that JRE issue that I had with that would have been picked up by that job, because that one runs once a week, builds a new fresh image, and then breaks. Basically, I'm talking about a golden image.
Golden image, yeah.
Yeah. And then what you do is you actually build that up and stamp it, and that job would have broken. And that would have told us, hey, listen, whoa, something went wrong. We can't build our base image anymore. And to answer Dan MBA's question about automate building an AMI, yes, you can definitely do that. We have got what's it called, EC2 Image Builder, and another HashiCorp open source solution that's been around for quite a while is called Packer. And you can use Packer actually to configure. It's basically just one big JSON file that you can, like, different runners, different clouds, different AMIs. It can even build Docker images for you if you want to. It's super useful. It's literally like one JSON file, Packer go create that, uses AWS credentials, boom, it goes and builds it for you. It's super, super useful.
Packer is wonderful. Packer is just a wonderful tool that you can do that. So yeah, I think that's a very important thing to kind of mention, that there's different ways of doing configuration management, such as creating snapshots. it's not as flexible as on-the-fly configuration, but it's a viable solution for sure.
You can combine the two.
You can combine. That's the thing, right? So for big static things, you can definitely combine the two DOPs, and that's what's being done mostly. One last thing before we go, and I kind of promised some people I'm going to do this.
I see code.
Yeah, it's not code. It's something better. So for the older folks here in the chat, right? Cobus. Myself,
Darko, get off my lawn.
So there was this thing that used to be called once, and it still exists, but IRC, or Internet Relay Chat. It's basically your good old chat rooms. The time before Slack and Discord and even ICQ and all the things out there. I've actually been part of an IRC group called AWS on what is okay, zoom on this one thing. Can I zoom in here? No, I can't. Can I zoom in? Yes, I can. So on IRC. So if you go to libera.chat, it's basically the IRC platform of the day. There's a relatively big group of folks, like 100 plus folks here on this chat room that are just like chatting about AWS and stuff. So I promise them I'm gonna mention this IRC room on live stream. So if you want to go join here and chat with like-minded people, you need to go to libera.chat. It's nothing sponsored here, but libera.chat, and if you can use your favorite IRC client to connect to it. So it is pretty cool, I must say. So check it out. Check it out, join it, and if you have any questions, I'm on this chat all the time, so you'll find me there with my nickname Rob12, with this nickname, and you can feel free to reach out to me there as well. Fun stuff, but. That's enough. Reminiscing
for us old folks. Jeez, Darko. Just for reference, last time I checked, Darko is almost 10 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
You know?
And
I don't know what it says about him or it says about me.
Exactly. It doesn't look that way. So but bye Freenode. Yeah, everybody moved off Freenode and it's now Libera Chat. So there's a lot of fun things there as well. So if you like just to chat, and it's a great thing. It's just about chat. There's no video calls. There's no audio calls. It's just text. If I have a problem, I'll message you. We can talk. And that's about it. I don't even send files through this one. But yeah, it's a great thing. Okay. We are almost out of time.
Yep.
Cobus, wrap us up.
So, thank you all for joining us today on DevBeardOps.
That was a bit too dramatic.
I'm trying out my radio voice, okay? I'm trying to get a backup job in place just in case this whole internet computer coding type thing doesn't work out. I've heard radio's still big.
You need to whisper in the microphone. And this will be all for today's edition of DevBeardOps. No?
Darko, that's if you want to do the NPR late night show version. So keep that voice, but let's bring back streaming on the rocks. Okay,
so late night with Cobus and Darko with whispering about GitOps and
and a soft, and you have to add a soft clink of the ice in the glass.
The skill of a dev can be measured by their beard. I don't think so. I'm a horrible developer, but it's the beard on the inside that counts, right?
Yes, and time. We've got 50 seconds left before we need to be off air, so we are trying to set an example of being on time to people in case you're wondering.
Yes.
Because if we're streaming, someone else can't start their stream on time.
Fair point. Next week, HashiCorp, Terraform, join us, same place, same time, twitch.tv/AWS. Bye-bye.
Adios.